All right, good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming out to BUILDUP's panel discussion event. We'd like to get started. At this moment, we would like to say thank you and hear a few words from our key sponsors. The title sponsor is the Cape Horus Center for Social Impact. This is Tiffany.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. The Cape Horus Center for Social Impact is committed to leveraging information technology for positive social impact. So we're definitely excited about this event and the conversations that will spring forth. We are committed to supporting Oakland as it builds out this new tech ecosystem. We have lots of big hopes. Primarily want to make sure that underrepresented folks are part of this conversation, part of the process. As you know, for example, if you haven't heard, Sears just got bought out to be built out to support tech development in Oakland. We want to make sure that the folks who are planning what's going to happen in that building look like you all and are part of that conversation. So thank you so much for being here. We're proud sponsors of this event. We're also happy supporters of folks who are working out of the hub, like Hack the Hood and Black Girls Code, 2 Point Oakland, Oakland Local are also represented here. So thank you guys for supporting this event, and can't wait to see what unfolds.
And at this time, we would like to also hear some words from our key sponsors, the City of Oakland, Eliza, and also the Impact Hub Oakland, which will be Ashar.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elisa Gallo, and I'm with the City of Oakland in the Office of Economic Development, and we too are great believers that Oakland is the next big tech hub that can happen. And we definitely see the elements from not only looking at the trends that are happening, but also know that the companies and the investments that are happening in Oakland can support that type of tech ecosystem that was referred to earlier. We welcome our guests. We look forward to following up with each of them on opportunities not only for our worker population, our talent pool that exists here, that lives here in Oakland, but also our businesses that might be able to do additional vending opportunities for this great tech industry that the Bay Area is proud of. So we, the City of Oakland, welcome you to this event, and we look forward to working with each of you on your business opportunities, your employment search opportunities, and also to our guests in terms of how we can match great opportunities in the City of Oakland. So thank you very much.
Okay, y'all, what's up? Oakland, y'all real proper in here tonight, huh? All right, cool. My name is Ashara Ekundayo. I'm co-founder and chief creative officer here. Welcome to our home. Welcome to the home that Oakland helped build, along with 1,300 or so other people from around the world. This is a retrofitted car dealership. We utilize the principles of permaculture and Buddhist philosophy and integral theory in our design and how we integrated the space itself and how we integrate our work with one another and in community and how we hope to be engaged in community. So one of our values is radical inclusivity. That means that this kind of conversation is the norm here. As our sister supporters and friends have mentioned, there are lots of tech innovative change makers who live here in this space on a daily basis. So I want to big up them and support the idea that we actually have to be in deep, honest, open conversations about how we can live sustainably and well in harmony, excuse me, with one another in community. And with that, I want to invite you to come and be part of this community of change makers, of solutionaries. And so it's a co-working space during the daytime. If you were here earlier, you can even see along the edge, there are tables that people come and sit down and open up their laptop, and we ask them to bring what makes them come alive to this space, and they do that. And so with that, we want to expand that conversation, just as conversations and the panel and the folks who are doing this work in the tech industry are interested in being really new and renewed and recycled and rejuvenated by us all being in a convening space together. We want you to know that you are welcome to be here. So I am trading business cards for day passes. So these are $20 bills. I am trading business cards for day passes. If you would like to come and work in here, maybe you have flex hours, you work at a company that lets you, just work at home, you might as well come and work here and like drink up my free trade organic coffee and tea and print out your stuff and be on my rocket fast internet and meet really amazing people. So I just want to welcome you all again. And the last little, no, for real, it's really a great place to be. Little housekeeping things, the bathroom is actually through this hallway. If you haven't already found it, you can go this way, you can go around that way. There's also a gender neutral bathroom right up these stairs. I want you to feel free to walk about the space. Don't feel like you have to stay down here. I want you to see our dome and all of the really beautiful spaces and the uptown room and the conference room and the gallery. I'm also the director of the gallery space. So all of those pieces are part of bringing your whole self, your authentic self. So not separating yourself as a parent, an artist, a technician, or any of that from you being an entrepreneur and a badass. So welcome home and thank you for tonight. If you want a day pass, just raise your hand.
Thank you, Ashara. So a little bit about BUILDUP. BUILDUP is a firm focused on inclusion, and it's designed to connect, educate, and mentor technology entrepreneurs. We're also focused on growing global innovations by connecting individuals with different backgrounds and experiences, as you will see with our panel tonight. BUILDUP partners are Kristina Omari, Wayne Sutton, he's somewhere in the back, and myself, Christian Anderson. We would also like to thank our other sponsors for this evening: 2 Point Oakland, Black Founders, Oakland Digital Arts and Literacy Center, Women Who Code, Latino Startup Alliance, LiveWorth Oakland, and Mr. Steve Blank. Follow BUILDUP on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+, and also hashtag BUILDUP.vc. And we actually found out today that Google is doing a contest with this event. So the person who uploads the most photos onto Google+ for this event will receive a Google Chromecast at the end, or it will be mailed to you. So thank you, Google. So a little bit about our panel discussion tonight, talking about creating an inclusive tech ecosystem. It is an important topic that has been discussed within many of our communities. However, when discussed, we tend to get the same type of tailored responses that we are all too familiar with. So tonight we're going to alter this conversation and discuss more of the solution versus the issue. Our panelists here tonight, they represent the forward movement of diversity and inclusion through who they are and through their professional work of making everyone part of the tech ecosystem. So without further ado, here's Kristina Omari, our moderator.
Great, thank you, Christian, and thank you everyone for being with us here tonight. My name is Kristina Omari, and I am one of the general partners at BUILDUP, and I'm very excited for the conversation we're going to have this evening. I've been in technology myself personally for over 17 years. But it was always a little bit challenging because, to be honest, I was often, what I call one of the lonely onlys, often one of the only women, and really almost always one of the only African Americans either on teams, participating on projects, and in many of the activities that I was doing. So it's very important to me personally, the conversation that we're having tonight, the work that we're doing at BuildUp and the work that our panelists are doing to really change that experience for people to come who seek opportunities in technology. So with that, I'll introduce our panelists. I'll ask each panelist to say a little bit about themselves, about the work they do, either personally or professionally in this area, and then we'll engage in some dialogue and some questions that we have for the panelists, and obviously we'll open it up as well to you all to also hear your questions. So immediately to my left is Cedric Brown, who's a managing partner at the K4 Center for Social Impact. Cedric?
That's actually what I was going to say. Managing partner, K4 Center for Social Impact. You all heard Tiffany, my most capable and wonderful colleague, give a rundown of the kind of work that we do and the kind of presence and impact that we want to have in Oakland, because it is such a vibrant and even emerging tech ecosystem here. Many of my comments will probably be focused on Oakland because we're trying to be more place-based as we do the work that we do. So I look forward to the panel. Thank you.
And next we have Sarah Stewart, Program Manager for Global Diversity and Talent Inclusion at Google.
So thank you so much for having me. This space is fantastic and really excited to engage in a thoughtful dialogue today about what some of the challenges that are facing our industry and how we can all kind of work together to solve those. So as you mentioned, I've been on the Global Diversity team, manager on the team, and I've been there at Google for 7 years and on the team for the last 5, driving some of our workforce diversity initiatives, and really excited to be here.
Next we have Barbara Williams, Director of Diversity and Inclusion at Oracle Corporation.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks again for this exciting conversation. Happy to be a part of it. Happy to be with my sisters and my brother here to really talk about solutions today. My role at Oracle, I lead diversity and inclusion. My goal or my job is really to ensure that we're enabling talent. I'm a talent optimizer. So what does that mean? That means that I have to ensure that we've got the programs and the policies in place, but also the learning, so that our leaders can be our best leaders and they can lead anyone, anywhere, at any time. It also means that we have programs and projects and internships and scholarships, and all of that is under my belt as well. My personal mission is to unlock the untapped brilliance in all of us, and this is why this is a great conversation, because the conversation that we're really having today includes you as well, because all of us are part of the solution. So it's great to be here. I also just need to tell you that I am speaking on my own behalf. I am not representing Oracle, so you're going to be hearing directly from me. Great to be here.
Great. Next we have Kiva Wilson, Diversity Program Manager at Facebook.
So Oakland, how you feeling? I'm living in Oakland. This is my community, and I'm so excited to have this conversation happening here. I am a diversity programs manager at Facebook in Menlo Park. So I make the commute every day, but this feels like home for me. I'm originally from South Carolina, so it's hard to make a lot of places feel like home, but Oakland really does feel like home. I think Tiffany hit the nail on the head. This view, the visible diversity that exists in this space, as well as the invisible diversity that exists in this space, that's what I'm aiming to create and make sure that we replicate in our Facebook team in Menlo Park and across the globe. Just like all of us are trying to do that at all of our companies. My goal is to simply to find great underrepresented minority talent, to make sure that we grow that talent, and to make sure we keep the talent, right? So it's great to have diversity in numbers, great to have diversity that you can see conceivably, and the diversity you can't see, but we're also trying to make sure that we create an environment where people feel not only included, but affirmed and valued and feel like they're able to be their authentic selves, which is what brought me to Facebook at the beginning of this year. So really glad to be here as part of this conversation and really want it to be a legitimate and honest dialogue.
Thank you. Next we have Amy Shapiro, Director of the Fellows Program at Code 2040.
Hi, thanks so much. So I work at Code 2040, and Code 2040, we're a small nonprofit based out of San Francisco. We've been around for about 2.5 years, and what we do is we create pathways for educational, professional, and entrepreneurial success for minorities in the innovation and economy, with a specific focus on Blacks and Latinos. And we're really looking to create access, awareness, opportunity for top minority engineering talent. I run the Fellows Program, which is our flagship program where we find some of the best Black and Latino computer engineering college students from around the country match them with internships, coding at top tech companies. There's a few of them here right now, and really help them thrive. So I'm really excited to be here, really excited to be part of this discussion.
Next we have Leah McGowan here, Master Technical Instructor at Salesforce.com.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I am who they recruit. I'm feeling real wanted up here. I work in technology. I've been working in technology. I've been working from mainframes, not in the 60s, but I've worked from mainframes all the way through cloud computing. I actually train developers how to code using Salesforce's tool set. So I teach object-oriented programming and all that geeky stuff. So I am going to speak of my experience navigating through this and what I feel my role and responsibility is as an African-American woman in this industry, and my real authentic experience and how I feel responsible in being part of making sure a clear message is sent to our youth that this is a viable option for you. Even if you don't see it on TV, if you don't see us represented there, this is something that you can pursue. And so I'm making sure that I connect with young folks, whether it be through different organizations, volunteering my time, working with them, letting them know, hey, I am here, there are others that are like me. We are not unicorns, we do exist. So, thank you.
Thank you. And Samantha O'Keefe, Battlefield Editor and Program Coordinator for TechCrunch.
Thank you. As I'm the last one, I will keep this brief. TechCrunch recently launched our Include program, which has been stewing around internally for quite some time, but we're really excited to start to make it a reality. And we feel as a media organization, we can bring unique assistance to some of the great organizations, nonprofits, any social enterprise that are working day to day to increase inclusion in the tech sector. So we're looking to give those organizations access to our community through our events, through our website, and through potentially expertise in helping them craft kind of their media strategy. So that's what we're doing going forward. Applications are actually open right now. There's a $50,000 grant associated with the program. So I encourage any of you that are working in that space or have questions to talk to me after. To clarify the battlefield component of my job description, I'm, I think, the only person outside the military with that in their title. The rest of my day job involves looking at early stage companies that will launch at TechCrunch Disrupt. So if you're an early stage startup and you're interested in participating in that program, I'm also here for that. Personally, I've been involved with increasing diversity in tech since I was very young, working with STEM, specifically civil, environmental, and mechanical engineering access for high school students, and more recently helping with hackathons with Women Who Code, UNICEF, and Vital Voices. So excited to be here.
Thank you all for being here. So I definitely wanted to dive in. I think many of us have been observing what's been happening in the press with many large companies, Google as well as LinkedIn, Yahoo, releasing some of their actual data about diversity. And so we're very pleased to have Sarah here from Google just to tell us more about that, but really more about how, at least at Google specifically, they're brainstorming on the real solution.
Fantastic. So I think for a long time, talking about diversity has been a little bit of the elephant in the room, right? We've all known that the Valley and that the tech industry isn't as diverse as we'd like it to be, but no one's been talking about it in an open and honest way. And I think that's one of the things we're super excited about, is that there's just a lot of momentum around talking about the fact that we'd like to see more diversity in the tech industry in the Valley. So, as we got ready to sort of disclose our numbers, and we're thinking about, we were pretty honest that they weren't where we wanted them to be, and they're not where we want them to be. And we've been spending a lot of time figuring out what do those solutions look like. And I kind of think about them threefold. So one is making sure that we have a work environment that is truly inclusive, where everyone can participate. So we went public with our data recently, but about a year ago, we started sharing our data internally, talking to Googlers about what our numbers looked like, where we saw diversity, where we wanted to see more diversity, and really engaging their help in the solution. Things like making sure that everyone was aware of the biases that they came to work with every day, of the way that they were interacting with their colleagues, and really making sure we had an environment that was as inclusive and conducive to diversity as possible. That's the first thing we think about. And then the second is our pipeline, our representation. How do we make sure that everyone is being included, that they're being sought after? And that's really about having the right programs in place, whether it's internships, scholarships. We're doing the right kind of outreach to make sure that no one's getting left behind, that we're not missing great talent. So investing more and more there, but that's not enough. Because if you look at who's participating in technology, you look at who's studying computer science, right? It's not a very diverse pool. There's a lot of people who aren't being included, women and minorities in particular. So thinking about how are we making deep and profound investments from primary school education all the way through universities to make sure that people are participating. So a great example of this is we started a program about a year ago, a Googler in Residence program with Howard University, where one of our Googlers, Charles Pratt, did literally an in-residence and worked at the school for the past year to revamp their CS 101 course, right? So how can we actively partner, not just give money, not just have a sort of partnership on paper, but really actively partner with, in this case, an HBCU, to make sure that we were working together towards a solution. And I think that's really critical for us, is realizing that Google has an important role to play, but I think if we're going to create a truly more diverse industry, it has to be all of our companies, all of our organizations, all of the individuals in this room and on this panel working together towards that. So realizing that we needed some really strong partnerships externally to get this done and to make the impact that we wanted to.
Wow, thank you so much for that context. And I'm sure Facebook and Oracle kind of face similar conversations. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you guys address the question as well.
So while we have not, put out our numbers, what's clear to all of us is diversity talent is needed in all of our corporations. And the reason why is because innovation comes from the diversity of talent. But it's also not just the diversity of having numbers, and that's what's really important as part of this conversation. Because who in here would want to be hired because you're black? Anybody? Anybody want to be hired because you're a woman? And if you're a black woman like me, then I'm a twofer, right? You get a woman and you get an African American. And I mean, if we're going to have a real conversation, then we need to talk about what's important to us. Because I wouldn't want to work at any company that's just going to hire me because they just put their numbers out, and now all of a sudden I'm getting hired. I want to be hired because of my talent, because I bring something to the table. I think differently. I have different experiences, and that's what's important. And so for us in tech, it's no secret. I mean, I've been in tech for 20 years. That one and only you're talking about, I've been a one and only. But it was also my responsibility, or at least I felt it to be my responsibility, to bring others in. And to make sure that when I walked into a room that I didn't just walk by my sister or my brother. And the other piece about this is it's not about us as African Americans or Latinos or Asians versus others. It's about how we can be more impactful, how we can impact our bottom line, how we can bring our thoughts and the experiences and perspectives that we have to the table. So for me, yes, it's about the sponsorships and the giving money, but it's also about the attracting the talent and retaining the talent. So what does that mean? So when you come in the company, to ensure that we have employee resources or we have leaders that are there to greet you, so that you see us in action and that we're not just someone behind closed doors. But it's also around that retention of getting others involved and saying, how can we engage you? And when we bring on a new orientation, a new onboarding class, that our employees are there to tell you the real deal. Because guess what? When you come in our companies and you come to orientation, how many people been to orientation? We don't tell you, here's the handbook, here's all the information. We don't really tell you how things get done. And isn't it important to know how things get done? Because that's how you're successful in the company. So we have our employees do that as well. So we hire from our internships. When I started with Oracle, we had some great internships. We did a ton of things. The United Negro College Fund. And I came in and said, that's great, we're really hired. Because it's important to me to not just give money, but also to ensure that we're building a pipeline and that as we are developing the talent, that we're also hiring the talent. And we know that everybody's not going to want to come work for Oracle. That's why we have Salesforce and all the other companies, Facebook and Google. But what's important for us is that we're also building that pipeline. When you take a look even at numbers, I mean, I wish I had a couple more days because I was with a statistician yesterday, and he presented some numbers that just sort of blew me away about pipeline and mathematics and science. We're a technology company. Core skills for us, computer science, electrical engineering. And, you know, as you were talking about, looking at the drop of women and saying, what do we do? How do we share that, you know, in our companies, it's very flexible. You know, I don't have to tell my boss that I'm going to the doctor or I need to go pick up my kids. None of our employees do. And most of my employees are virtual. They're all across the nation. And, you know what, if they need time off or they need to go take care of something, they can. And so part of that is just really getting the word out about the benefits within our technology company. So the single parents don't necessarily feel like, you know what, I'm giving up something if I come work in tech because it's just binding grind. You're going to grind you to work to death, and then nothing else is going on. So it's important as well, you know, of looking at how do we get more individuals, African Americans, all of us, in computer science and technology. And it doesn't mean you have to be a programmer. I programmed when I was at SAP, so I came from tech and then came into diversity and inclusion. But it's also knowing that we can tell our story via an app, or the things that kids are into today, of sharing with them that, you know what, if you can play a game, then you can build a game, or you can build a website. And so those are the things that we're doing, because again, it's important for all of our success. Our president, you know, yesterday was talking about, you know what, we need more diversity in tech. And you know what, the reason why we need it is because we need the talent, and we need you. And when you come in our company, share your talent. So hopefully we'll get to something around making sure that you're bringing your full self, because we need your input to make better lives, to be better. So,
thank you. Keith? Yeah, so I think it's fantastic that we've had additional information shared by Google and LinkedIn and Yahoo. And it obviously has prompted a lot of folks to ask Facebook the question, when are you going to share your data? The short answer is not yet. And the reason being is the following. When it comes to diversity, I think it's been eloquently stated several times now, it's not just about the numbers, right? It's about building a sense of community internally. So that way when you are hiring and you are increasing the visible and invisible diversity within your team, people feel like they're coming into an environment where they can thrive, right? We're not trying to bring you in just to see if you sink or swim. We move fast at Facebook. When we say we move fast, we really do move fast. And so you are best positioned to do that when you feel like you are in an environment where people want to see you thrive, people want to see you really push the limit. And so what we're really looking at is building a community and talking about that data internally first. That would be our priority, to share the information internally, to talk about what those numbers mean, to talk about what that indicates for us should be some priorities. And then once we've done that, that's when we'll move to actually share the data publicly. Because you got to build community internally, in-house, before you start to build it and expand it beyond. And so we got to do our homework inside. And I think one thing that's important to note is, you know, we've had employee resource groups for a while at Facebook. We've had Pride App, we've had Black App, we have our Latino App, which used to be Somos App. We've had a number of different employee resource groups, and it's all been typically focused in around highlighting the existent diversity within our staff in-house. But really what we're trying to do now with the recent introduction of our Global Director of Diversity is looking at how do we not only build community amongst yourselves and, you know, a cross-pollination between those of us that kind of have an intersection of identities, but how do we build upon that to create an environment where we can actually actively go out and recruit and bring people in so they feel like they're walking into a community. And that's where we're really starting to make those strides. But I think it's doing that work inside first before we go and step outside, because it will be a disservice, frankly, to those of us that currently exist at Facebook and those we're trying to bring in. Because we're trying to do this from the best place possible, which is really to put everyone in a position to thrive. And I think that's what it takes to do first. And so I think within that mindset, one of the things we're trying to do as well as Oracle and Google is we're really looking at pipeline too, right? We can really build community, but we also know 18% of CS majors are female right now, the ones that are graduating. Less than 5% of those degrees coming out with CS majors belong to African Americans and Hispanics. That's absurd. And that's the bottom line. It is absolutely absurd. It is not what it could be or what it should be. So we're working with organizations to try and create that type of interest and excitement around the world of tech, around the world of computer science at an earlier stage. So we're working with Yes We Code, for example. We've got some Code 2040 interns at Facebook right now, and that's just the beginning, right? I mean, it's not about checking off boxes. But what we're really looking at is how do we create and inspire more interest so that I think it is understood in middle school and high school that I like this game, I can code this game. I like these kicks, I can actually code and actually program some designs in my kicks. I mean, there are different ways to create excitement and to reach populations that, frankly, we might not have access to an IB or a CSAP course when we're coming through high school. That doesn't mean that you don't have the chops. We're trying to create those doors, open those doors earlier on, and that's really one of the ways we're doing it with Yes We Code, but we can talk more about that later on when you guys actually ask questions and we answer what you want to hear.
Well, thank you all for that context. That's very helpful. Sarah touched on something I wanted to go back to, though. You talked about helping people in terms of knowledge and their potential biases. And I think that's really such a hurdle, I think, for people who come from backgrounds outside of the ones that are well represented today in technology. And so I definitely would love your response, but I also would love for all the panelists, I would love to hear more stories about how people have thought about addressing the bias issue, particularly in technology, which we always laud it as a complete meritocracy, but I think in practice that doesn't always come to fruition. So I want to open it up to all the panelists to share some of your thoughts on that.
I think I can answer that. So at Code 2040, what we do with the Fellows program is we partner with companies throughout Oakland, San Francisco, Silicon Valley to host fellows where they intern over the course of the summer coding on mission-critical projects over a summer internship. And so I think over the past 2 years, we've been around for about 2.5 years, over the past 2 years since I've been there, I think I've talked to about 200 companies throughout the Bay Area. And one of the things that I talk a lot about with companies is hiring criteria, where a lot of companies, a lot of hiring managers don't realize some of the bias that they might have when they see, for instance, a resume formatted a certain way, or if some of the effects that only looking at students for internships from top 10 engineering universities can create. With that point, the top 10 engineering universities don't have the majority of the Black and Latino engineering students, and so that's one of the reasons that companies might not find the type of diversity in candidates that they might ideally want for their teams. Another conversation I have often with companies is talking about the business case for diversity, that it's not just a nice to have because it's like good for society or we should do this, but that having a diverse team, having diverse leadership, diverse builders of the products will incorporate different use cases, different marketing strategies, different ways of structuring the company that the company wouldn't get otherwise if they just go back to the same people and they get the same ideas.
So we're all about trying to attack and deconstruct this myth of meritocracy that exists in Silicon Valley right now, that behind closed doors, or if you're in your remote location and you're coding, all that matters is your code. Well, how do you get in? How are you accepted once you're in a company? If you're an entrepreneur, how do you get capital for that? So there are all of these biases that are built into tech systems right now. We're trying to make sure that people understand how to decouple what is kind of fit, what's been called culture fit, what's been called worthiness, and what merit actually is. It's about looking at systems of evaluating how someone will achieve success in your particular institution or in their particular company. Because I also want to introduce tech entrepreneurship as part of all this. We've been a big company focused right now, but tech entrepreneurship is also part of this emerging and vibrant tech community conversation. We want to make sure that the measures of success that are being used by companies who are bringing folks in, by recruiters who are trying to get technical and non-technical talent into their institutions, as well as VCs who are starting to evaluate entrepreneurs who are coming to the table, that they understand what actual successful measures are and not just go for the regular pattern recognition or just go for the kind of things that have worked for them in the past. So I think being able to continue to really attack and dismantle this notion of, oh, meritocracy code is all that matters, or if you have the technical chops, you're going to make it, because we've seen and heard over and over that that's not enough.
I'm sorry, Sarah, did you want to add? Right, just forward to home now. Yeah. Sarah, was there anything else you wanted to add? Or? Okay. Well,
about bias. So one thing to note is all of us have them. They don't just sit in one group. All of them. So for example, one of my biases is that, loud and obnoxious people, I can be in a conversation with Sarah and somebody walks up and just starts talking. That's a bias. What's important is, first of all, to recognize everybody has them. So it's not a you and, only people up here that have bias. We all do. The other part around bias is to address it. And part of that is the leadership development that's needed for the people that are making the hiring decision, for our recruiters, to begin to talk about that. And part of this is unconscious. You don't know, but you just sort of look. It's, I don't know, but something about this person or something. Because most of us in the big companies, we have, you apply to our positions, and guess what? They go through the system's already going to tell us whether or not you have the qualifications or not. And so by the time you get to the recruiter, if your name is not, certain names, they may not know. But what's important for us is to do the development and the training for our managers. We do that, but of course, called selecting winners. Why? It's important to be able to select a winner based on some of the things that you just said. Not so much about just do you have the skills to do this job. And I'm not saying that we're going to hire somebody who doesn't have the skills, because it's important to know that we're looking for the top talent. We're looking, and if we can't find it, then that means we've got to create it or build it or something. But it's also important for our leadership to go through these courses and for us to have these conversations to ensure that people are not being screened out when they're great talent. Just because they may have worded something a little differently, or maybe because they look differently, or maybe because they act differently. I'm an extrovert. And I tell people all the time, if you're an introvert, I'm going to drive you crazy, and I apologize. Why? Because it's important for me, and I have introverts on my team, it's important for me to do what? To listen to them. To talk to them a little later, because they're not going to be the first ones with the answers. They're going to come back and think about it, and
industry, but that doesn't mean that's where you have to be. So, and I think it's important for people like us that have walked in these doors to make a point and connect with the youth and say, you know, we exist, we are here. You know, don't stay behind your desk. We need to be out and talking to the youth. And it's extra time, it's extra effort, but it's going to be a payoff. It's really very important that we do give back at some level.
Absolutely. I'll be brief. I think because I mean, many points, not just one. I don't want to just dilute it down to one, but it's obviously multiple points. No, but I wanted just to add because what's interesting is I think she makes a good point in the sense that there really is an additional level of interest in creating more excitement for the youth population. But I think it behooves us to think about the statistic. There are 10% fewer females graduate, 18% like in 2012, 18% of all the CS majors were female. Back in 2002, it was 28%. So we are graduating even fewer. And you see our current numbers, right? You see the current numbers within the tech industry, which conceivably reflects kind of our ability to tap into that 28% pipeline. If we're graduating 10% fewer females and even fewer people of color, and we recognize that in the tech industry we're not comfortable with those numbers, it's going to require our companies as well as tech entrepreneurs to get behind and help support Black Girls Code, Girls Who Code, the Hidden Genius Project, because like she says, the youth, we need to see our own potential personified right in front of us. And there's no better way to do that than to work with the folks that are in this room to see, like, wow, you're in the VC, you are doing your own, you're making moves, and I can do that too. Because otherwise, it's great when you have youth outreach, but it's really powerful youth outreach that reflects the background and the experience of the professionals that they are aspiring to be.
And just quickly to that end, I haven't been to a program focused on young people learning how to code that has not been sold out. Leah's son participated in a hackathon right here, the Startup Week in Oakland, Black Male Achievement Hackathon. This group was packed with young brothers who wanted to learn how to participate in a hackathon, wanted to bring their coding ideas to the stage. No, they were there early in the morning trying to get in. Same thing with Brothers Code at the K4 Center, along with Hidden Genius Project and a few other partners, sponsored an exposure event for young men at Laney College from throughout the Bay Area. We had almost 200 young men, middle school and high school age young brothers come through wanting to at least learn the building blocks for coding. Level Playing Field Institute's hackathon last year that was held down at Jack London Square. Room full of students who are putting their ideas about how they can benefit from apps that are going to address community-based issues. I think one of the groups won for like $5,000 or something. They won a grant from Kaiser and
it's about 5 of them. I think this was over at Reach Out. At least the one I was over at Reach Out in Ashland over at, so was it 3,000? Yeah, it was 30,000. And then Kaiser was part of the partner as well. And so, you know, just to your point, we need everyone. And it's important that it's diverse by design. That whatever we're doing, if you're hosting something, just like you see the panel, and just like we are here, this is what real life is about. This is what real life looks like. So it's important that we're including everyone. So that, again, our kids can see themselves represented.
Yeah, I'd like to say something too about building the pipeline across the country, not just in Silicon Valley. One of the things we do through Code 2040 is we go to schools. We throughout the country, we've been to over 30 campuses across the U.S. Our pipeline of students is over 2,000. And one of the things that has been really interesting and when we go to schools and go to communities that are in South Carolina or Texas or Florida or Georgia, that so many students not only don't see people that look like them represented in the in the media from Silicon Valley, but also that they don't know what it takes to make themselves an attractive candidate. They don't know what a hackathon is. We've met brilliant students that don't know what a hackathon is, that don't have their code on GitHub, that don't feel like they have access to hubs like Silicon Valley, like New York, like Austin. And so one of the things that we've done because of that we didn't initially realize was a need, is develop material and programming for those students to help them become better candidates. And so we developed a toolkit with resources that about setting up a GitHub account, languages they should know, things that they should know to do a technical interview. And we're going to be rolling out some new programming this fall too, to in-person programming called TAP, Technical Applicant Prep, to really help students better prepare for the industry.
That's great, and that really, I think, brings up information and awareness. I'm curious at TechCrunch how you think about how media organizations can really impact inclusion and diversity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that in my role outside of inclusion, actually I wanted to bring up, so in our Battlefield competition, which we view as a mini accelerator or incubator, and I'm sure a lot of you out there, if you're doing a startup, you've all thought about joining an accelerator or incubator at one point. There's been a lot of kind of biases that have been reported in the news about the types of people and selection bias getting into those programs. And so I think at TechCrunch we try to be, and we've taken a very purposeful approach, particularly in the past 2 to 3 years, on recognizing exactly, as you said, those biases we have going in. And for me, it's really about looking at context. So if you look at a startup coming out of rural Alabama, for example, you're exactly right in the fact that they won't know the Silicon Valley lingo, and their website will not be built from Twitter Bootstrap and have a huge, beautiful, faded out image with the sign up right at the top, because those are trends, and that's a type of communication that exists here. But it doesn't exist in rural Alabama. It also doesn't exist in Singapore or in the Middle East. And so we have to take a step beyond the surface when we look at these companies and look at these founders and say, okay, what is the real business here? What is the real product? And is it adding value to people? And what's the potential there? And I think that does take a little bit of extra thought and extra work, but I think it's completely worth it, and we're finding stronger and more diverse companies all at the same time. So that's sort of one way that we think about kind of this contextual search for early stage companies. And I think the other way, as a media organization, we really have a great connection to the ecosystems in the Valley and New York and Boston, and Austin was mentioned, and there are some really strong hubs. And there are a lot of emerging hubs, Oakland being one of them, places like Seattle, places like Atlanta. And we do a meetup series, which is a really informal event. We kind of have it at a bar, and a couple of writers come, and we do a little pitch off, and it's a lot of fun. And the real reason that we have hosted these events is to make sure that at some level we're getting outside of that bubble that exists here, and really being able to engage on the ground with entrepreneurs in their environment. They need to talk to people and say, what's really interesting coming out of your community? Who have you heard that's doing really great work? And have a face-to-face conversation with people. And that gives you so much more context when someone sends you an email or when you get a pitch on the phone. Then you say, okay, actually, I kind of know what's going on over there, and I can better look into that. And so those are some of the ways that we really think about trying to promote it in our work.
Thank you. Well, we're almost short on time, but obviously we're here in Oakland. I think all of us are passionate about the tech community here in Oakland and wanting to see a more inclusive, more diverse community arise with all the growth that we have in tech here. So curious, open it up to all the panelists, what can we do here in Oakland to create that more inclusive ecosystem?
Should I answer this? Okay, so, hello. So, I'm developing a thesis around this based on some work that we've been able to do over the past year in conjunction largely with Live Work Oakland, which is Susan Meredith and I came together to really try to suss out what the landscape of the tech community is here in Oakland, and it ended up being launched as a website that is has a searchable database where folks can go to learn about the different kinds of tech entities that are present here. We also, along with 2.0 Oakland and Karen Bergman, put on at the Vader Splash Oakland, which was a tech innovation conference or tech entrepreneurs conference back at the beginning of May, that long ago, a session on creating an inclusive and vibrant tech ecosystem here in Oakland. And we invited a panel of speakers. I think there were 8 speakers from various parts of kind of Oakland's civic life to come and give their vision of what an inclusive and vibrant tech ecosystem here would look like. And there are a number of things that emerged out of that. So I'm categorizing them as the 4 Ps. One is perceptions about the city, both in terms of its vibrancy and in terms of some of the issues that Oakland faces. And we have to address those things, while also retaining the character of Oakland as being, as I call it, the soul of the Bay, the sabor of the Bay, not losing that. So perception is number 1. Number 2 is pipeline, as others have addressed. We have to get the numbers of people who both have the tech background in education, technical background in education, as well as folks, again, who are in non-technical jobs in some of these companies and some of the startups. Number 3 is another P. It is partnerships. What is the alliance? What is the coalition that's coming together to help organize this more broadly? Because the best-based efforts and movements come together around coalitions. It takes many players in order to do this. And then lastly, and probably the most important one, is policy. We've learned over and over and over from folks that without housing policy that is going to allow people to be here and stay here and contribute to the community, then it's going to be, this wave is going to be like a tsunami. It's going to wipe us out. So these are things that I think we're all starting to learn and organize around Press 4 in this community, because Oakland stands to be something really, really special, adjacent to Silicon Valley, in the nation, and indeed in the world. Because look what has been done here at Impact Hub Oakland. This is just an example of what we can be for the rest of the globe. So we're just big fans of what can happen here in Oakland and want to continue to press forward in the development of the community that takes those things into consideration.
I'll miss one.
Sold.
I would also just speak to, if any of you guys are, how many of you are founded a company, thinking about founding a company, or work for a company less than 50 or 100 people? All right, excellent, excellent. So I think that a lot of the big leaders in Silicon Valley, Google, Salesforce, Facebook, etc., have done great things and are making great strides with their hiring efforts. But I would encourage you guys not to wait until you're a big company to start to think about these things. As we've heard, it improves your business, it improves your culture, it makes recruiting and hiring pipelines better. To start off thinking about how you can build a great inclusive culture and really take people at their value, and not try to be aware of those biases as you're looking at the hiring practices. So I would say early stage entrepreneurs, it's kind of up to you guys in a lot of ways.
Just gonna build off of what she just shared, because I think it's up to you guys, but it's a shared responsibility we all have. And with that in mind, I think it's incredibly important that as you look to grow your own companies and create really diverse environments, that we maintain what I think is one of really the special things about Oakland, which is that we keep people real and we keep people honest. And so let's not wait to have these conversations when the numbers indicate that it's a problem, i.e. hold us accountable. And we will do the same for you as you grow as well. But I think these dialogues, there's no reason we can't have them on a recurring basis. And frankly, not just with, this assortment of individuals up here, but with you guys here, kind of recognizing and identifying and helping us to see the problems that we may not be seeing. But having a little bit more of a pointed conversation around where you want to see Facebook stepping up, where you want to see Google or Oracle stepping up, and where you want to see Code 2040 and some other organizations kind of helping to fill the pipeline. But my point is simply this. these conversations, the more frequently they happen and the much more honest tone and tenor, the better off we'll be in the long run.
I think it's so important that exactly what you said, like the conversations happen and that everyone is participating. And by everyone, it's large companies, small companies, startups, accelerators, the pipeline of future talent, organizations, media, right? These are the challenges that we're trying to solve in the tech industry and trying to make the industry both more diverse and more inclusive. No one individual, no one company, no one organization, no one advocacy group is going to solve them in any city, anywhere in the world, right? It's going to take all of us working together in spaces like this, convening for events like this, and thinking about solutions together that feed the entire ecosystem that hopefully, right, in 20 years, if we all come back here and we're hopefully listening to a whole new panel of people, because we'll probably have gotten boring by then, but hopefully, you know, we see a different landscape than the one that we see today. And in order to do that, it's going to take all of us working together to solve some of these challenges.
Okay, Amy, one last time, and then we'll open up for a few questions.
Sure. I think one of the things you're starting to get into, you know, by the year, the reason Code 2040 is called Code 2040 is that by the year 2040, according to census projections, people of color will collectively become the majority in the U.S. And in the year 2040, 42% of the population will be Black and Latino. And I would love for the tech community to have built into the systematic change. And I think beyond even conversations, I think conversations is where we start. And I would challenge everyone here, everyone listening to go even beyond that and take action. So by whether it's partnering with Code 2040, we have one of our host company partners, Schoolzilla, is in Oakland. We partner with companies from two-person startups to Facebook, LinkedIn, and all in between. But again, we're like you said, we're only a piece of the puzzle. So find the hackathons to help volunteer at. We're having a hackathon this next month. We're having a think tank next month. Come join us. Find other initiatives that you feel passionate about. And I think if we're trying to help train the next generation of leaders, getting them exposed to these conversations, getting them to have conversations like this of their own, and put on hackathons themselves. We had three of our alumni went back to their universities and put on their university's first hackathons last year. And it was so exciting to be able to see that pipeline building and be able to see that word of mouth growing. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you to all the panelists, and maybe now we have a few minutes for questions from the audience.
Of course, I'm going to have a question, right? So I spent 8 years in Silicon Valley working for big tech companies as an executive and a product developer before I moved to Oakland and started doing other things. And one of the things that made the Valley a great place to live were all of the networking opportunities, the different kinds of communities. A bunch of us who were women organized a monthly dinner that people would come to. There was the Silicon Valley Venture Forum. There were all kinds of groups. And I've been living in Oakland since 2008 and dreaming of what's happening. But I'd love to hear you guys' recommendations on what are kind of healthy, inclusive, positive ways to build more community among people who are doing startups or working in tech in Oakland that you think would carry forward some of the values that we're talking about, but also would be doable, right? Like executable.
I mean, one idea, we're all here today, like collect business cards, exchange information, start sort of gathering together groups of people, and it doesn't have to be, I think the important thing is not that it's fancy and not that it's always a prescribed event, but it's just about getting people together for interesting conversation. So networking at any possible event that you can find. And then I think it's important along the way to take a step back, right, and look around and see whose voices are we missing? How do we, whose voices are we not hearing? How do we figure out what connections we might have that will help us get to those voices, right? So you're really building an inclusive culture and an inclusive environment. I think that's one of the things that's so important is being aware enough to know whose voices are being heard. And then I think, we're talking a little bit about Oakland and the Valley and San Francisco, but as someone who used to live in San Francisco, now lives in the Valley, came out to Oakland for the event today, they're not that far away. And I think there's probably more that we can do as a kind of Bay Area, and that's probably something that we don't think about as much as we ought to and we could.
Well, thank you for coming. This is our first Build Up event in Oakland, and we expect to have more, as well as events in San Francisco and in the Valley. So you can come out to our events and keep building that community. So that's one of our core values at Build Up as well. Maybe one more question, and then we probably have to break time. Or back.
Can you guys hear me? Yes, you can. Hi everyone, my name is Bianca St. Louis. I'm Amy at Code 2040. If you could touch on the topic of getting the parents on board and changing the narrative. So for the longest it was like, become a doctor, become a nurse, like ways or tips that you guys in your collective organizations have been like getting the parents in on the conversation. And also, both my parents are Haitian, so I'm wondering, like, how are we getting our friends in the diaspora, like, in on these conversations, like, past the States, because I know no one's talking to my cousins in Haiti about tech. So, but I see that they would value greatly, so if you guys could just touch on any of those things.
Well, that's funny because I went to Haiti with Salesforce as we are implementing it for the government of Haiti. So the conversation is actually is happening. I think in terms of parents, being a parent, it is hard because you do have parents that kind of, even culturally, we will say, oh, we don't do that. We don't do that. Meaning, black folks don't do this. We don't do that. And we assume that to be our truth and our reality, and we unconsciously pass that on to our children. So they grew up thinking, oh, I can't do that. We don't do that. And that is so not the truth. So I think it's really kind of, as Kim was saying, it's starting internally, because and it is hard to do going against what your parents may think or what your parents may say. But it's really getting the exposure, because you can say, even, look, Mom, there is somebody that looks like me that does this. They do this, and it might get you some credibility with the parents, right? But it's part of it, and I know at that last hackathon, we had parents that were here with their kids over the weekend. I offered to be the developer for my son's team, and they put me out. So I'm okay with that, but I'm just saying, there were parents who were truly gung-ho who wanted to be part of that process. And I think for me, teaching coding to people, particularly women, I find that when it's a little too intimidating, we back off and close up and we just say, that's just not for me. And the barriers come up. So I really think it's about making it digestible, breaking it up into pieces where you can, and it doesn't have to be just technology, it can be any industry, right? Where you have to approach it where a lot of times we shut it down because we don't understand it, it's never been part of our culture, we don't do that, but really trying to make it more familiar and a connection with it. And it is a hard thing for the parents, but a lot of times I think it's going to be the kids that drive that change and the parents. I am a parent, and I am constantly learning from these kids, constantly. They're teaching me.
I think the ubiquity of tech is also helping to change the narrative and drive it itself, because folks use it all the time. And when kids come to their parents and say, I want to go participate in this, I heard about this kind of thing, as they are exposed to different kind of tech-related opportunities, some parents want to learn about it too. Well, what is that? Oh, okay, there's an opportunity in that. And from their adult vantage point, they can understand the economic opportunity that opens in front of them, the career potential opportunities are opening up in front of their kids, and sometimes they try to find resources that are going to allow their children to move through pipelines. So that's one thing that we've been witnessing through some of the programs that we help to support and are in partnership with. So I think the narrative is starting to shift. The because of the ubiquity of tech, because of the tech superstars who are now household names and part of everyday lexicon, and because of these exposure opportunities for young people that parents come along to, and sometimes drag their kids into, and the kids end up loving it.
Just one quick addition there. It's worth also acknowledging the fact that that is a hesitancy for parents, right? So selling the success stories of young entrepreneurs is fantastic, right? So you see your full potential in front of you, but in addition to that, have those parents, those guardians, that also were the naysayers, or frankly doubtful, and justifiably so because it's an unfamiliar territory for them, having their narrative, highlighting the fact that I did see some success out of this, also I think helps to change the conversation.
One more question. Final question, but hopefully the panelists will be able to stick around for a few moments.
I'll be brief. Cedric briefly touched on pattern recognition. I want to know if you could just elaborate on that, and also for the folks, our guests, many of you who are working in HR in the diversity programs, if you could speak to the irony of people of color largely being ushered to work in those departments, yet we have a pipeline problem.
Just really quickly, so pattern recognition is a shortcut that is used in this instance in tech in order to try to pick out people who are going to be winners. So folks do that with looking to make investments in entrepreneurs. Folks do that when hiring, and sometimes so pattern recognition. This person fits the pattern of what we've seen work before. That's it, basically.
And I'll speak to one component of the irony, and I can only speak to it from Facebook's position, but actually our diversity that we do have isn't concentrated in our HR department. I can speak to it for us, and I think that might be different for other companies, and it's probably because we're a smaller company. But realistically, that's not where we're ushering folks in. We're trying to bring folks in based off of their skills, and the pipeline problem is on that CS side. We're looking to bring them into the tech side. But we also have a very robust business side of things, and it's based off of where you're wanting to work. You're applying for the job, not based off of where can we fit you. Because we don't have such a robust diversity development program that we really bring folks in early on and say, HR is where you're going to end up at. Because frankly, that may not be the best use of your talents and your skills. Why would we do that to you? You wouldn't do that to us, so let's not make that happen. So that's not really in the ethos of who we are as a company. But I can only speak to that from Facebook standpoint.
I would say we, at Google, feel really similarly, right? We want to bring people in where they can thrive the most. We talked a lot about pipeline challenges in computer science, and I think that's a reality that we see less diversity sometimes in computer science than we do in students studying other disciplines. So if you look at a lot of companies, you're going to see sometimes more diverse representation or more representation of minorities in business fields, whether it's sales or marketing or finance or HR. So I'd say part of that is the pipeline challenge that we've all been talking about, that we need to make sure that we have diverse talent in every shape, form, background, perspective, idea in all of the fields that are represented in our companies.
I'll just echo what you said, and I'll tell you that, in fact, I was discouraged from being the diversity person. The way I got into it is because my manager tapped me for the talent and the skills that were needed to do the role. And you know what? I have the best job in the world. I love my job. And you know why I love my job? Because I can impact change. And sometimes change is instant, but sometimes change takes a while. But I know that I'm changing people's lives because I'm opening doors to opportunities. So for me, it's not just my job, because I do many things in the community as well. And I would be doing this even if my role was not diversity and inclusion, because I believe that it's the debt that we all owe, and it's the responsibility that we all have to ensure that the next generation is better off than we are. So I'm in a flat organization as well. I think in tech you'll find that most of our HR companies are pretty flat. But I chose this, I had the opportunity, and then I got into diversity and inclusion and started seeing that the doors were opening, that I was having conversations that perhaps people were just too afraid to have. And I was questioning authority and asking questions about, so why don't we just recruit from
these schools that have 3 and 4 and 5% diversity, and we think we're going to make change, or asking the question about UNCF or other things. So, you know, I think all of us have said it. It's where you want to work. It's how can we help you get there.
I think maybe that's a great point to end on, just due to time. But I think also I love that spirit of, you know, we all need to think about how we can keep asking the questions, keep thinking about the solutions, and working together. So thank you to all the panelists for sharing your thoughts with us tonight.
Hello everyone, I'm Wayne Sutton, and I really want to say again thank you to all the panelists, thank you to the sponsors, Impact Hub, K4, the City of Oakland, all the ODLC, Sean, and Lenny in the back room. I really want to thank you all for everyone who made this event happen, for attending. And with upcoming, we got more build-up events. We interviewing Tony Conrad, the founder of About.me, partner at True Ventures. We're going to fireside chat with him in July. Steve Blankup coming in September. And how many of you going to Essence? Anybody going to Essence? Essence? Well, I know there's a Yes We Go hackathon. We're doing a panel there about New Orleans and this similar conversation about inclusion in tech for New Orleans. And Build Up, we're really passionate about change, about entrepreneurship, about technology. And we need all the panelists. We need the City of Oakland. We need everyone in this room support to make that happen. Because you see, this is not just one company, but it's also, how do you say, it takes a village. And there's one group I do want to mention that's not represented here, is the venture capital group. And that is a key area that in terms of all you want to be founders and launch a company, that change need to happen as well. And we hope to have dialogue about that, and also another way you can support BUILDUP.vc. Thank you, network. Have a good night.
Are you going to have this online?
Yeah.